Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Hi, yes, you are audible.
Hi. Okay. Hi, Surbi.
Hi, hi. How
Okay.
are you?
I'm good. How are you? Okay. Okay, fine. So, in our previous class, that is yesterday, we just discussed the blueprint of Cisco certification 20301, that there are 6 modules and what are the weightage of 6 modules and how we are going to get through these 6 modules. As well as I had discussed about the different kind of devices, the network devices on packet tracer. We have understood what are the different, means at least we know the names of the devices now, that there are routers, there are switches, there are hubs, there are wireless devices, firewalls, wireless controllers. So these are all our network devices. And we also saw our end devices, which we or as a user who connect to the application, like your computers, laptops, smartphones. So they are all end devices. And we also went through some sort of cablings, just short in brief, like how do we use this automatic connection cables at the start, and later on how to use the console cable when you are getting your device for the first time, a hardware device in your premises. So how do you just connect the console cable for the first time and do the basic configuration? We haven't done any basic configuration, but I just showed you how do we connect the console cable for the first time, and the remaining thing configuration, we normally do it in a remote access way. And after that, we had just run one demo. That demo, I'll just open it for you all, what I did yesterday. So we just saw these things. The left side is all my networking devices. How do we connect the devices using cables, the end devices. And we saw this particular topology we had created yesterday, just to understand how does my web page, when I go and write a name of a website in the URL of the web browser, so how it works, how does it work, like how it converts the name to an IP, how it resolves the name to an IP with the help of DNS server. And yes, it is recorded, and it will be uploaded in the portal. Okay, so you may contact Sagar for the recording. So how the DNS server helps in resolving the name to an IP, and then the TCP handshake process, that it happens before the HTTP request and reply comes. Okay, so we saw it in very brief, not anything in detail, which we are going to cover it in our future sessions. Like how is DNS resolving it, and what is TCP handshake, why does that three handshake is important, and then the request and the reply of HTTP goes ahead. So that was all about the previous class, that we had explored a lot of things. And I just said in today's class, we will be totally focusing a little more on theoretical layered architecture. What is a layered architecture approach? And also I will show you some more detailing today. Okay, some more topology I will create today, and I will show you, so that you can also start, doing it parallelly along with me, or maybe once the lecture gets over, just make sure that you remove some 10 minutes time, 10 to 15 minutes time, to complete the kind of scenarios which I create. Even you recreate it at your end, and observe whether you're able to do it properly. It will not take more than 10 minutes if you see it properly. I'll take all small configurations at the very start, so that you all can get comfortable with it. Okay. So today's agenda is to start with the OSI and TCP IP model. Okay. If anyone has any queries so far to ask anything, you can go ahead and ask me. Okay. Else I will start with the kind of, what is my today's session related to. So this was all about yesterday's session. So in today's session, we are going to discuss more about the layered approach, because as and when we will be looking into the packet flow on Packet Tracer, so there will be a kind of layered architecture, layer details will be mentioned, and that we should understand that which layer we are referring to, the device is referring to, what it is showing you, what details it is showing you, so that we should know when we look in the packet on Packet Tracer file. Okay, so this is, as the name says, it's a reference model. We are going to see two protocol suite, or we can say we are going to see two models. One is the OSI reference model, and the other one is the TCP/IP protocol suite. Now, the TCP/IP protocol suite, this was established way when the internet was in place. And OSI reference model, this came up later. Okay, the TCP/IP protocol suite, as the name itself says that it's a protocol suite. So there is always this two kind of thing which we compare, TCP/IP protocol suite. People sometimes say that as a model, but generally it's known as a protocol suite. And this was existing when the internet was in place. And reference model came as a later. After a few years, the reference model was developed by ISO, an open organization, open standard organization. So why do we still look into OSI but we don't use it? Okay, we don't use OSI. We just understand it for our theoretical understanding, because when you're using the Packet Tracer, you will see that it shows you 7-layered architecture, but in general, it is not being used for internet, because TCP/IP protocol suite was existing in place, and it also follows a layered architecture, which we will see it shortly. So people were comfortable with it, and there was no such maximum need of, going towards OSI and reorganizing things, or building the infrastructure again with the OSI reference model. So it's just a reference model, which we will understand that it gave the approach of layered architecture, because initially work was not defined. Nobody was knowing what standard one should follow, what functionality one should focus, how to troubleshoot things when there is something wrong, who should focus it. So why, what, when, all these things were not very much clearly defined. So then when this layered architecture came, it was very comfortable for an administrator, for a network engineer, for everyone to know where is their role, where they should be focusing on, which functionalities they should focus on based on the responsibilities or roles which are carried out by these layers. So there are 7 layers which you got to memorize it. You can memorize it from top to bottom or bottom to top, up to you. Okay. And we are going to see the roles identified, or the functionalities of each of these layers. So when I start with the application layer, okay, the application layer is where I can say the user is sitting towards that. Okay, so the user directly starts with an application. So we as a user, we may go and try to open some website, some email, some anything which we have to do. Okay, we just go and start those applications and we run our applications. So the user is connected with the top layer, that is the 7th layer, application layer. And we can say that this is the sender side. Whatever the sender side, the kind of layer is seen, exactly the same kind of layer will be seen even at the receiver side. At the sender side, we are going from top to bottom, or at the receiver side, we will be going from bottom to top. Okay. So accordingly, we will see how the datas are related. And in between is what we will see is networking. So as the networking suggests, the name suggests that there is a transfer of data from one point to another point. That is the role of networking, to make your data transfer from one point to other point. And that is what we are going to understand, that where does a network administrator or a network engineer role comes across. Okay, so when we are in the application layer, we are starting some applications, we are trying to run those applications, And that means we can say that it is our users data which is going from the application layer. So let's say we are sending some file from one point to other point. So you just started a file, you took a file and you want to send that file. So your file is ready now to get transferred. So in order to send your file, so let's say you are using some protocols like FTP or some other protocols. So protocols are running. For example, yesterday when we saw that when we are going with the website, there was a protocol named HTTP. Also, when we saw that when we were resolving the name to an IP, there was a service which we had used that was DNS. Okay. Also, I mentioned you that when you are going to access your device remotely, because only for the starting time you do the basic configuration using a cable, console cable, but most of the times we will have a remote access of our device to see or modify the configuration. So we are going to use this Telnet and SSH. So these are all the set of protocols which are running to support your different kind of applications. So you started, let's say, remote access of any of the device, or you tried doing some sort of HTTP thing. So that information is ready at the application side. The presentation layer is going to check out that whether you are presenting the data in the correct format. Okay, formatting in the sense that when you are sending a text file, what should be the extension of a text file? When you're sending an audio file, what should be the extension, like .mp3, .wav, whatever it is? Then when you're sending a video file, so all this kind of formatting, this kind of syntax, semantics, encryption, also the encryption, like you want to encrypt your file and send it, you want to compress your file and send it. All this encryption, compression, formatting, everything is looked out by the presentation layer. So it's as good as like you are ready with the information and you just want to write the information grammatically correct, syntactically correct, and that is what is seen by the presentation layer. As soon as the data is in the correct format and presented, we move towards the session layer, where the session layer sees that all sessions are maintained properly, means they are kept separately, and there is a record of it, that when the session started, who is communicating, which application is communicating. So there is no cross communication between the applications. Whatever request has gone, the reply should be coming to the same page or to the same application. The reward should be in the same application. You go and open a bank website, you go and open an email website, emails, your Gmails, whatever it is. So the information should load into the correct session. It should not go in a crisscross manner, that the emails inbox messages are coming on your bank websites web page. So that is being maintained, the sessions are recorded. So most of the times you may see that the sessions are expired. This kind of information you may come across on the web page when you're basically looking into the banking websites. So they try to see that you maintain a proper session. They also see that both the ends of the devices, okay, they are synchronized in a proper manner. It means what? That I am sending some information, which is means I am having a channel in which I can only speak or I can listen one at a time. Okay, I cannot go and send and receive simultaneously. So if I am connected into that kind of communication mode, so that we are going to see, that is known as half duplex, full duplex, and simplex. Okay, so simplex is something which we know you no longer use it, because simplex means you can just send or you can just receive. There is no two channels to just having the sending and receiving. So I can give you one example, like a radio, where you know that you just need to tune to one frequency, you listen to that particular frequency, and somebody is broadcasting. So there is a simplex approach. Then we have a half duplex approach and a full duplex approach. In a half duplex, you have only one channel available. One can send, have to wait, then the other person can receive it or can send it. So it's like sharing. There is only one channel for sending as well as for receiving. And full duplex, where you have two channels, one can send, one can receive. So simultaneously we can talk, like the way we can talk in our mobile phones. So there are two separate channels for sending and receiving the information. So it's kind of making sure that the devices are set up in a proper communication mode. Okay, I'll just show you this, what I was talking about half duplex and full duplex. Let me show you in the packet tracer also that when you take up any of this device, like say I pick up this switch, which was already there. So inside that, when I get inside this config tab, okay, and I get into these interfaces, there were 24 ports in the switches. I get inside this interface, something which I see is this duplex information. Okay, I see this duplex information as half duplex, full duplex, and auto. Okay, so when we say it is auto, the device are going to synchronize themselves. They will understand whether the opposite end of the device is in the half duplex mode or it is in the full duplex mode. So these bandwidth, duplex, these are all the common settings which is required to be set up so that the communication can happen properly. Because if everything you configure, everything you have done, you have configured everything. Who is writing this person? Uh, Please don't disturb in this manner. If you're not interested, you can leave this meet, okay? Please don't disturb in this manner by writing on the screen. Okay, so now what I was talking about, that these common settings of bandwidth duplex, it plays a major role in networking, though often we try to just see that we learn the configuration, we know the concepts well. But if you don't know this basic idea about the communication, because this is all related to communication, the communication settings. So when you say that bandwidth, we need to see that in a bandwidth, the two end or the two devices are synchronized with the same bandwidth. Okay, what I mean to say that if I am saying that I am connected on 100 Mbps speed and the opposite end, okay, you have one device over here, this switch, which is connected with 100 Mbps speed, and there is another switch which is now connected with 10 Mbps speed. So here, if you try to connect this cable, this communication will not be possible. Okay, because their bandwidth is not synchronized in, especially in an IP world. Okay, especially in an IP world, the frequencies which we say here, or the bandwidth what you say here, they should basically match at both the sides. Okay, they should basically match at both the sides so that the communication can happen properly, as well as the mode of communication, whether you're into half duplex or you're into full duplex, that is also something which needs to be same at both the sides. Then only the communication can happen properly. Yes, duplex is the way the data is flowed over the wired, right? So even in wireless communication, we say that it is not only in the wired communication, also in the wireless communication, we have half duplex. Okay, because we cannot send and receive it at the very same time. This channel is quite common given to us. So wireless communication, especially your access points, what you have in your enterprise for wireless communication, they support half duplex. Okay, their communication is half duplex. So half duplex means you just have one channel, and that is used for both transmission as well as for reception. So for transmission and for reception, one channel is used. And for full duplex, what I mean to say is that you have two channels. One is for transmission and one is for reception. Okay, so these are communication parameters which should be seen before you start your actual configuration. Because if this is something basic, if you don't see, then there is no way of going and learning everything and doing everything, and then you just don't know these are the basic common settings which the devices should be configured to. Okay, so we generally need to make sure about most of these things. All right, so that was most related to the session layer. Okay, then we have this transport layer, which is a very important layer to connect your upper three layers to the lower three layers. Now, what do I mean by these upper three layers? The upper three layers in TCP/IP protocol suite, they're combined and they are given a name as application itself. So simultaneously, I am discussing the TCP/IP protocol suite because, as I said, that the roles are the same, just the layering and the names are different. There are 5 layers in TCP/IP protocol suite and 7 layers in OSI reference model. So in TCP/IP protocol suite, they combine all these functionalities of each of these layers and they say that this is complete application layer. Okay. And where do we see all this functionality is being implemented by whom? Okay. Where is this functionality or who is carrying out this functionality? Who is playing the role for achieving all these things what we just discussed? So when you are using your end system, your computer, your laptop or anything, we know that all our systems are dumb devices if there are no operating system installed in it. Okay, you just get an hardware, and if you don't have an operating system inbuilt in it, your hardware is just a dumb device. It has no intelligence. So when you just build your operating system in your hardware, there comes a logic, there comes your software, there comes your system files, your program files, so that it can help the interaction go easily with your hardware, with your peripheral devices like your keyboards, your mouse, your other devices. So there is a good communication which can happen or which is possible because of your operating system. So most of these functionalities, what I just discussed about the applications, the presentation, the session, even in fact the transport layer, they are being achieved with the help of your operating system, your system files, program files, a lot of files which you have it in your operating system whenever you load your operating system. So these are all carried out, the roles and functionalities are being carried out by your operating systems and the files which are there in your system. Okay, so whatever program files, system files, which you see that most of these files are located in your C drive, and if you go and navigate and explore it and try to see those files in detailing, okay, let me show you something. Let me show you most of some files which I'll just try to run, use the run command. And there is something which is known as services.miscellaneous. You can click on that, or yeah, you can click on this. And when you click on this, I did run that. Yeah. So you will see some sort of, this kind of, uh, these things are there. These are some files which are running for supporting all your services, like right from your wireless services, DNS services, all the services which are there, everything, okay? All the services are they running in your system. So anytime you find some issue, you can get into the service system, you see which are running in the running mode and which you can restart it. So I just go and check out this, so that if I have an issue related to any of my DNS server or my wireless configuration or my wired configuration, I just see that these are all running in the behind. Okay, they are all running behind. So all kind of settings I can see that what there's all services, whatever services are running in my computer, and you can check out that what I was talking about, that all your services, what you run, the applications, what you start, okay, everything is being seen in this particular services thing. Okay, so all your top 4 layers is managed by your system files. Your operating system is taking care of it. Okay, so there is no direct networking which we are doing in the top 4 layers. Maybe an application developer, a software developer is more interested with the top 3 layers. Okay, then the network roles majorly starts from your transport layer. Okay, so that is something which is important to know, that your application presentation session, they are all a part of your operating system, softwares, program files, and that is managed by a set of different people. So your role as an administrator starts with this transport layer, network layer, data link layer, and physical layer. So now the file which you wanted to send is ready till here. So the user data is ready. We say that the user data is ready till here. Now, once it reaches to this transport layer, okay, once it reaches to this transport layer, it checks out whether that particular file is, will we be able to take it directly without breaking it, or we have to break that particular file. What do I mean by breaking that particular file? If I am sending a file of 2 GB or 4 GB, my network underlying technology is what I use is Ethernet. Okay. We are going to say that we are on a LAN over a local area network. We are connected with the Ethernet technology. And this technology we are going to see in detail in the further lectures. This technology has a maximum limit of carrying 1500 bytes of data at one go. Okay, it cannot carry more than this 1500, along with the details and the functionalities which you will see that each of these layers are playing some role. So they will add up their own overhead. We say that as a header, they will add up their own header so as to see what they are doing along with the user data. So there is a process of encapsulation which I will be referring to, that every layer from the transport layer is going to add up their own header and achieve their functionality in whatever way they can. Okay, so transport layer will see whether your underlying mechanism, this is for Ethernet, which is 1500 bytes. For different underlying technology, like you have serial communication over WAN. If I am talking on a WAN, wide area network, I am on a serial technology. And inside the serial technology, the maximum transmission unit will be different than the 1500 bytes. So depending upon what is your underlying mechanism or technology, we generally try to, see the kind of number of information which I can carry. Yes, related to optical fiber can do the data transfer at a good speed. Okay, it can support a good speed of bandwidth, I can say. When you're saying bandwidth, it's like in terms of bits per second. But when I'm talking about a file which I want to transmit or I want to transfer, the files are in considered as in bytes. Okay, your files in your systems are stored in bytes. So keep a difference between the two. You're sending a file, you're storing your file, it is in bytes, and the data transfer rate is in bits per second. So optical fibers can only give you good amount of data transfer. The speed, the bandwidth, let's say 1 Gbps per second, it says that it can carry 1 gigabits per second. Okay, but when I'm talking about Ethernet, it is saying that this is now Ethernet is also supporting 100 Mbps of bandwidth or 10 Mbps of bandwidth. Just now we saw in a switch that there was 100 Mbps of bandwidth with which it was supporting. That means it can carry 100 megabits. Okay, that many bits, because bits are nothing but zeros and ones. Everything will be converted to zeros and one at the end in the physical layer. Okay, that we are going to come across. After that comes your actual cable, which can be a twisted pair cable, it can be a coaxial cable, it can be an optical fiber cable. So these cables are going to just determine your data transfer rate. They are going to determine whether your data is safe, secured, and everything. There is no kind of interferences which happens when your data is going. So more kind of technical specifications when you are choosing the cable. Okay, so your cable will determine the kind of length you want to, what is the length of the data transfer, from what point to what point you want to transfer the data. Accordingly, you may choose the cables. You will choose the cable based on the interferences, that noises which are getting added up because of environmental factors, because of several other factors. When you're laying down the cables, so how much of interferences is happening with your actual information, so that your, because noise is something which cannot be eliminated. Noise is always there. So data and noise, they both travel together. We just need to see that the noise does not suppresses the data, because at the end, then the receiver will not be able to understand what information or what data was there. So there will be a lot of errors, and then you need to see that the data is again have to be retransmitted. So when you're choosing the cables, we will see, when we will discuss about the cables, we will see in detail what kind of cables we have, what are their specifications, what are their advantages, their features. So cables are there to tell you the kind of data rate transfer, the rate of transfer of data. Okay. When I'm talking about these technologies, where I'm referring to the amount of bytes of file it can carry at one go. So with this Ethernet, we will be able to only take up 1500 bytes of data. So I need to break my 1 GB file, 2 GB file. That you can also see when you download any file at your system. Nothing gets downloaded just directly. You see that there is a time which it takes to download the data, maybe 1 minute or 30 seconds or 50 seconds, whatever it is. If it takes that amount of time to download that particular file. Okay. So in this case also, if you are sending some 1 GB file, so that needs to be broken down into chunks of the underlying mechanism. So if the technology is Ethernet, you need to make sure that the data which is being divided is something is somewhere around 1460 bytes. Means we don't divide it in exact 1500 bytes, we divide it in this number of bytes. Why this? We will see. Okay, don't worry. This is just an introduction of this layered architecture. Every layer we are going to dissect and learn better. So in transport layer, we understood that it is checking out the underlying mechanism, whether the maximum transmission unit is how much, and accordingly it decides to break the data into different segments. It also sees that when you break the segments, okay, when you break the segments, then yeah, that's what, when it is more than 1500 bytes, it will just try to break the segment. And after breaking the segment, if it will try to do the padding also, if to make it as 1400 or 1460 bytes, okay, it will break it, it will do some numbering. It is as good as like if you have a lengthy you have a long let's say you want to send some parcel to your friend, but that parcel is so big that you just cannot send it in one box. Okay, you're trying to deassemble, or let's say, let me give you one simple example. You want to send your bicycle to your friend, or you want to send some of your furnitures to your friend. So your furniture is so big that it doesn't get supported in entirely, you cannot send it together. Okay, you're sending it to some distant place. So you will try to deassemble it, and okay, and you will try to locate those different parts in different boxes in different parcels, and you will try to number them, that this is my, there are total 3 boxes which I am sending to the receiver, so that the receiver can tell you that yes, there are 3 parcels which I have received correctly. So you number them, and you just make sure that these files, so as well as when you're sending any data from your application layer, so if you're dividing the transport layer, if it is dividing that particular data, it will make sure that it will number it, it will do some numbering, and it will see that all this numbering will help at the receiver side to know that 1 of 2, 1 of 10, 2 of 10, 3 of 10, 4 of 10. So likewise, I can say this 10 is the total number of segments of the same message. Okay, there are 10 segments of the same message. So the receiver should know how many segments it is receiving at a time. So it will look out for this numbering. It will also look out for giving some acknowledgement that when I say send you the message, you give me an acknowledgement that you received the message, then only I'll send the next one. Accordingly, the acknowledgement is also incorporated in transport layer. And one very important thing is that you will see that there is a possibility of retransmission also, which is happening in transport layer. Okay, retransmission means if there is a data error in there is an error in the file. Okay, so the receiver can ask for retransmission of data. So till all the data is received at the receiver side correctly, the data is being stored in the buffer. Okay, it is being stored in the buffer. Okay, so accordingly, the retransmission of things will happen. The transport layer will make sure there are protocols in transport layer, which we normally say as TCP and UDP. So these protocols will come into picture if you have to check out for retransmission. So these are the 3 to 4 functionalities of transport layer that it is helping you out with the uh, breaking of data if it is more than the supporting maximum supporting underlying mechanism, whatever it supports. It will help in sequencing, it will help in acknowledgement, it will help in doing your retransmission if you want a reliable service, as well as it will help you in doing error detection as well as correction, because error detection is something very, very important, that whether my file has been received without any error or without any modification. So it can detect the errors. Also at times, due to some softwares, we have some error concealment softwares or mechanisms due to which it can also correct the errors. Means some errors can be corrected by the at the receiver side also, and without asking for retransmission. If there is no possibility of correction, then it will ask for retransmission. However, there are certain programs which we have nowadays that can help, conceal the error, can get back the actual file if there are just few errors. Okay, so transport layer is very much responsible for detecting the errors, correcting the errors, and doing sequencing, doing acknowledgement, doing retransmission, as well as doing port addressing. Because if there are tens and thousands of applications the user is starting at its system, how does one differentiates the different applications? How will you, me, or how that particular system is going to differentiate these different applications? So they are differentiated with the help of port numbers. So when you start one application, you are having some port numbers given to you. And when you're visiting a website which is an HTTP, which is working with the HTTP protocol, these protocols are given some standard port numbers. Okay, when I'm using HTTP, my port number is 80. When I'm using Telnet, my port number is 22, SSH 23, vice versa. So all these kind of port numbers are dedicated for dedicated applications. Okay, so these port numbers are helping you out to distinguish the different applications which the user starts. So when the data is going, the request is going, many applications are sending the request for different applications. So they will be assigned a source port number. These port numbers are all software ports. They are not physical ports. These are all software ports which will be assigned to your application, whatever application you start, and the destination port. So these are the source port I was talking about. Destination port is where if you're going to a standard application like your DNS, your HTTP, your email, your FTP, any standard application. So the first 1,000 port numbers from 0 to 1024 is being reserved for all these dedicated applications. Okay, so these port numbers are reserved, which we cannot use it. Our system cannot use it to assign us randomly. Our system assigns us the source port randomly by apart from 1024 port numbers, so that you will be able to see. Okay, so that's a lot of functionalities which was involved in the transport layer. Okay, so I hope you just remember all these functionalities. We started with the breaking down of data, breaking down of data into segments, sequencing of data, because once you break it, you need to number them, acknowledgement of data, so that if there is any loss of data, somebody can say that this was lost, or this needs to be this is more reliable. When you are giving a when you're giving an acknowledgement, that service becomes more reliable. So if you want a reliable service, go and give an acknowledgement for that. Retransmission of data, if there is an error, if there is a loss due to interference, collision, you can retransmit the data. You can see error control mechanism is implemented in the transport layer, end-to-end error mechanism. Okay, so you can detect errors. Error control, when you hear this term error control, that means detection and correction both are involved. Then I just discussed that the port numbers are also given by the transport layer, so as to distinguish the different applications you are running at the user side, whatever applications he or she is running, to distinguish the application, so that every request reply is loaded in the same page and it does not go here and there. So the transport layer helps to distinguish this with the help of port numbers. And then the last functionality of the transport layer is the flow control. The flow control is nothing but if I am sending the data at the rate 100 Mbps, But my receiver who is sitting across the globe, somewhere across the globe, his speed is not 100 Mbps. His speed is somewhat 10 Mbps. Okay. Then I need to synchronize the data in his way of listening. Okay. That means I just cannot send the data, because if I am sending the data at my rate and the receiver is not able to catch that particular data at the same rate, most of my data will get lost or it will get discarded, because there will be no buffer to store all my data. And then there will be more of retransmission, which I have to do. So what I can do at the very start, I can synchronize myself. I can synchronize myself and see that I transfer the data at the same pace what the receiver is capable of getting it. Okay. In the same logic, like when I'm talking to you, if I talk it in my proper pace so that you all can get it clear, then I am having a good synchronization with you. But if I say 100 words or 200 words in a minute, then everything will go out of your head. It will just be like nothing goes inside. Okay. So that is how the flow control is also managed by the transport layer. So we sometimes refer it as a layer 4, L4, or we say it as a transport layer, a very, very important layer from networking point of view. Okay. Maximum things are being achieved in the transport layer. Okay. Again, all these things are implemented with the help of your operating system, logic, software. Okay, there is no dedicated separate hardware, separate device, which we say that is working with the transport layer. So these first four layers are completely logic. When I say logic, it means there is some piece of code which is supporting all these functionalities in your system. Okay, so there is a question, how the sender will know that the end device have less bandwidth than him? Yes, a very good question. So at the very start, if you remember, yesterday when I was showing, there's a handshake which is happening. Okay, there was a handshake before we actually started our HTTP request or a reply. So in the handshake, you basically you send the information about how much you are, what is the size of your receiving. There is a window. There is a window concept in transport layer, that this is my sending window, this is the receiving window. So they see what is the size of their windows, and accordingly they send the information. So when they are doing the TCP handshake process, they get to know about what is the pace at which the receiver is able to receive the data. Okay, it's not about exactly bandwidth, it is about the window size. Like I have the capability of sending 5 data at a time, so my window size is currently, let's say, 5, and the receiver window size is just 1. It means it can only receive 1 at a time. So there is no meaning of me sending 5 at a time. So I need to synchronize it again from 1 to 1, that I send 1 and 1 basis. Means I send 1, I wait for an acknowledgement, then I again send 1 and wait for an acknowledgement. So there are certain windowing concepts which are there to achieve this flow control. So there's not much related to bandwidth, it is much related to the buffer size. I can just say it's much related to the buffer size. When you are saying flow control, it's like a buffer. My buffer size is what sender's buffer size is there, what is the receiver's buffer size. The buffer size needs to be checked, and accordingly you should send the information. So in the first 3 handshakes, what we do in that stage itself, the window size information is understood, and accordingly the data is being transmitted. Okay, so as I said, we are going to dissect these transport layer in detail, though in our CCNA curriculum, the 200-301 certification, not much of emphasis is given on the transport layer. Okay, means they have just given more of emphasis on the last 3 layers, because this is where the networking starts. Yes, window size is same as the maximum segment size. Yes, you can say that. You can say that. Window size, window size is same as the maximum segment size. We can say that thing because anyways, the transport layer is responsible for the same. Okay, so you don't worry about that. As I said, we are just going to get into all these details. I will make sure that I touch a little more about transport layer, though it is not a part of your 200-301 CCNA course, because you go and check out there that there is not much of information which they have given in order to explain transport layer. But I will be taking up that, don't worry, because I know that this is very important to know these all functionalities in detail. Okay, so what next is your entire networking. Okay, so from layer 3, layer 2, layer 1 is where your exact networking come into picture. So where the network layer we say is the backbone, or it's the heart or the brain of your networking, because here is where you will learn about IP addressing, you will learn about the concept related to routing, because router is a layer 3 device. It works on the network layer. Okay, so when you are saying router or a switch or any other device, okay, these devices don't have all the 7 layers or 5 layers inbuilt in them. Okay, so if I was talking in terms of TCP/IP protocol suite, so this was my application layer, then there was a transport layer, and then came up your network. So the rest remaining 5 layers, the names are just little different: host to host, internet layer. They don't say network layer in TCP/IP, they say that as an internet layer, and accordingly the names are just different. So when you come to the router or a switch, okay, router is a layer 3 device. We have a switch which works with layer 2 as well as with layer 3. Okay, so in yesterday's session when I was showing you that in our network devices we have, where is it? Okay, so in our network devices we have this layer 2 switch and layer 3 switch. Okay, so layer 2 switch means it will only have two layers, that is the data link layer and the physical layer, only the two layers. Multi-layer switch, it's a layer 3 switch which can function as a router as well as like a switch. So it has three layers. When I talk about a router is a layer 3 device. So it will again have only three layers, that is the network, the data link, and the physical layer. When I talk about hub, which is obsolete, but still we talk about hub because our access points which we use for wireless communication, they have a similar role like a hub, because hub was supporting half duplex communication. Your access points are also supporting half duplex communication. So people, though they say that hub is obsolete, they are no more in place, what is the use of knowing about the hub? But I say that it's equally important to know about it, because if you are interested to know about wireless access points, how they function, it is very much similar to your hub. So that comes as a layer 1 device or a physical layer device. So what I mean to say over here is that all these networking devices, as per their layers where they are starting to work, they will only have from that layer to the below layers in it. They won't have all the 5 or the 7. If I say 5 means it is TCP/IP and 7 means OSI model. So all these layers are not there. All 7 layers or all 5 layers are not there in these devices, because these devices are not meant to know what is going on in the application or what is going on in the transport layer. Okay, they are only dealing with the layer 3, from layer 3 to layer 2 to layer 1. Okay, so you need to know this. All these 7 layers or 5 layers are not seen in all these devices. These are networking devices. So wherever they are landing up, whichever layer they are working on, from that layer to all the below layers you will find in those devices. Okay, so router is a layer 3 device because it works with IP addressing. Switch, there is a layer 2 switch. It works with the MAC addresses. So it is considered as a layer 2 device, okay, because it is based on MAC address. A layer 3 switch can function as a router as well as like a port. So it can function on both the ways. Okay, so that's all about the first knowing about the layer 3 device. So a network layer is the heart. So all IP addressing routing, because when you are going from one point to one source point to destination point, you will have many paths available to reach that one point to other point. You may go directly, you may go in on any other manner. Okay, based on the different paths, you should at least know the information that how many paths are available from one point to other point. So you are living in one city, you want to travel to some other city, you should at least know how many different ways you can reach to that city, what are the different modes of transportation available, and depending on your priority, that you want to reach it quickly, you don't want to spend more money, you don't want delays, accordingly you choose your priority, your, and accordingly you decide your path. Okay, you decide from how do you want to go from one city to other city. In the same manner, in networking, when a packet comes to a router, the router should be loaded up with all the information about all the networks in the given topology. All network information should be available, all the path information should be available, that how many paths are available to me, and then which one is the best path out of all this based on some parameters, as I said, that as the way you will decide based on your priority, what looks good for you, you will choose that path. On the same lines, the router will check out which one is the best path available to reach or take the packet from one point to the other point. So best path can be something, the path with the good bandwidth, the path with less of congestion, the path with low latency, likewise. Okay, so the best path is determined based on the different parameters, different criterias are there, and accordingly it will use one of the best path and make your data transfer from one part to other part. But it does keep all the information of all the parts, because and in times of failures it should know that if this path is going to fail, then I have the information about the other parts which I can use. Okay, so it keeps all the information of all the parts, and but it uses the best part for taking up the data. So it's a very, very important layer for anybody to know about networking, because IP addressing is also something important, routing is also important. So all many things the network layer or the router is doing. Apart from that, you also can set up some security policies over a router, that whom you want to allow. So a router can also act like a firewall. Okay, like means you can distinguish which traffic should come inside your network, whom should be allowed to access your device, whom should not be allowed, which traffic should be just discarded, should not be allowed to enter in your network. So you can also set up some good policies, security policies, to make any network to permit, allow the traffic from any other network or deny the traffic from any other network. So you can also set up some good security policies over a router. So the 3-4 functionalities which I just discussed, I'll just make a quick recap, that it was related to IP addressing, routing, then determining the best path for reaching the destination network, and also defining the security policies. That is all about network layer. So your router works in a network layer, and it is responsible for, very, very important in double quotes, that it is responsible for inter-network communication. Okay, inter-network communication. So when we are trying to make our topology, we should know when should I choose a router in my network, when should I choose a switch in my network. That understanding should be there. So router is used when you want to communicate between two different networks, inter-network by the name itself, between two different networks. And how will you identify that there are two different networks? You will be able to identify with the help of IP addressing, subnetting. These are the concepts which we are going to see. So with the help of, when you know the concept of IP addressing, you will be able to understand that what do I mean by two different networks and what do I mean by the same network. Because when I will be talking about this think that it's intra-network or inter-network, this kind of things will be available. So you should know how do you distinguish between two networks and intra-network and inter-network. So router is responsible for an inter-network communication. Okay, it's responsible for your inter-network communication, means for two networks, when you want to connect two networks, you bring a router in picture. Okay, so you bring a router. So at one side there should be network 1, at the other side there should be network 2. There should be two different networks, or even if there are 4 interfaces on the router, there should be 4 different networks at each end of the router. So you can say that these are all ports, or these are all interfaces, to be technically the term which is used. These are all 4 interfaces which I have it on this router. So when I see this router, I can say that there are 4 different networks connected to the router. So router will it will help to communicate between network 1 to 2 or network 1 to 3 or network 1 to 4. Okay, but within the network, when you want to communicate, okay, inside the same network, when you want to communicate, then router is not going to come into picture. Then something which is going to help you out there is a switch. Okay, so switch is useful for intra-network communication. Okay, just remember these two important terms, that when to use router and when to use a switch. So a switch is used when you want to have the packet to be going from within the network. It is going inside the same network. And when you want to communicate between two different networks, place a router in between them. Okay. How will you distinguish these networks? With the help of IP addressing. The IP addressing will help you understand that these are same networks and these are different networks. So that's how you get to understand where to place a router and where to place a switch. So this is a very, very important thing which the network layer is doing. Okay, so I hope this is clear so far. And the last is the data link layer and the physical layer. Now the data link layer is responsible for MAC addressing, because network layer was responsible for IP addressing. Data link layer is responsible for MAC addressing. It is also responsible for doing the layer 2 concepts, which I just said, that switch is placed inside this layer. So intra-network communication, and determining again the error correction and error detection, not correction, between the nodes. Okay, between the nodes, not end to end, between the nodes. Means from this switch, if there is a data which is going to another switch, then if it is going to another router, so whatever errors which may happen when they are transmitting the data, that errors it can detect. Not end-to-end one, means not the actual data, users data. End-to-end is checked by your transport layer, but node to node, I can say these are nodes to node. This is supposed to be node 1, node 2. They are often referred as nodes in our communication networking terminologies. So node to node, when they are going, that errors detection capability is also being performed by your data link layer. But end to end, that means from one system to the other system, from the sender to the receiver, where all 7 layers of models are there. So there the error detection is seen for your actual user data. Okay, detection as well as correction capability is there in the transport layer. However, node to node, that kind of error detection is given by your data link layer. Also the flow control, that at what pace you should send the data, that is also taken up by your data link layer. So MAC addressing, intra-network communication, error detection, as well as who is going to access the medium, shared medium. Okay, when you are sharing a medium, like your wireless medium is being shared by multiple devices, so one should speak, how one should speak and what time, because when all of us will start speaking together, then there will be a possibility that none of us, none of the information will be received by anyone. So there should be some way of defining who should speak first, who should listen, then who should speak. Then this kind of rules are being set up for medium access, for a shared medium. When you're sharing a medium, which can be a wired medium, it can be a wireless medium. So when you are sharing a medium, how one should access the medium, that is also defined by your data link layer. Okay, So medium access, error detection from node to node, MAC addressing, intra-network communication, all these are the jobs of the data link layer. And the last layer is physical, means everything is visible, everything is in the form of bits. Okay, everything is converted, all your data, whatever was there, everything is converted to zeros and ones, and they are being encoded to electrical signal or optical signal, depending on the kind of cables you are connecting. If you are connecting a coaxial or a twisted pair cable, so your zeros and ones will be accordingly represented as voltage. There will be a voltage specification. Zero means 0 volt, and 1 means 5 volts. So electrical specifications will be specified, and accordingly, if you are sending some optical, you are using some optical cables. So 0 will mean there is absence of light, 1 means there will be presence of light. So everything in the form of cables, technical voltage specification, power specification, as well as the connectors which you are using for the cables, the connectors which you will use. So how the connectors, the mechanical specifications of those connectors, like the dimensions, all these things are a part of your physical layer. So physical means, by the actual term, you can see the cables are involved over here. Your encoding happens over here because everything is in the bits. So encoding it to electrical or optical, everything is being taken care by the physical layer. So everything is in the form of bits, electrical specification, mechanical specification, all these specifications are handled by your physical layer. Okay, so I hope you have understood the roles and the responsibilities which are carried out by all these 7 layers or 5 layers in TCP/IP protocol suite. In TCP/IP protocol suite, we will be more in general looking out for the protocols who is achieving to do these jobs. Okay, we will check out which kind of protocols are running up in each of these layers to achieve a specific kind of a functionality which I was talking about. Okay, so there is a question here. So you said the data link layer provide MAC address for the device, intra-network communication, and flow control. Yes, that's right. MAC addressing, intra-network, flow control, medium access control as well. That who will access the medium when it is a shared medium? How should one access the medium? Okay, it means how one should means the system, because here the computers, your end devices are involved. So who should speak first? Who should speak later? Who should wait? Because somebody's else communication is already happening in the medium. So you should not start sending your information because it's in the shared medium. And if we are trying to send together, then there is a possibility of collision. Okay, so I'll just show you in just 2 minutes. I'll show you that demonstration of collision. If I can show you that packet tracer file, just check out this kind of collision I am talking about. That if you are trying to send, yes, collision prevention can be done. There are certain rules for collision prevention. Okay, so let's say I will just show you that there are 2 computers or 3 computers involved here, and I connect a hub. Okay, because hub is something which uh, which will help you demonstrate. Okay, I'll just connect all these with the cables, and I'll just give an IP addressing to these PCs. Okay, I'll just enter a few addresses over here. Let us say I enter your 20.0.0.1, then 20.0.0.2, and 20.0.0.3. I don't do anything. Okay, I just configure this. I'll get into the simulation mode of my packet tracer. I will start with this PC3. I'll go into the command prompt, and what I will do, I will try to ping. Okay, these are the 3 devices, right? I'll just place the tags here. So let's say this is 20.0.0.1/8. This was 20.0.0.2/8, and the other one was 20.0.0.3/8. Okay, so what I will say that now these two computers, let's say they want to talk together, or they want to speak to this PC5, which is given the IP 20.0.0.3. So the sensing the medium, and once they sense the medium, they saw that it was available, it was free, basically it was free, the medium was free, and they understood that nobody is communicating, so let me start. So both of them, this 20.0.0.1 and .2, they both sensed the medium, and they saw that it is free, nobody is communicating, so let us start the communication. So I will show you that both of them, okay, I'll go and try to ping. So I will try to ping is a command to check or whether the opposite layer is ready for communication, or the opposite device. So connectivity, as I said yesterday, that network layer status. So 20.0.0.3. Okay, I hit enter. Okay, again, from this computer, I will go to the command prompt and I will say ping 20.0.0.3. So both have sensed the medium that it is free, and they both have initiated the process of ping. Okay, both have, I didn't hit enter, I guess. Okay, I hit enter. So both of them, PC, you can see that PC3, PC4, both have entered it. Okay, let me go to, I haven't entered yet. Okay, so both have started the process. PC3 has also started, PC4 has also started. They both want to communicate with PC5. Along with this, there are two packets which you are seeing. What are these two packets? Don't worry, I will show you tomorrow again. So there's an ICMP packet and an ARP packet. So both have started the process. Now I will play the forward button. Just look into this. You see something in red? Are you able to see that? Right? That is what is known as collision. That both of them, they started together, checking that, you know, there is the medium is available and nobody is communicating. They both started together and they both collided. Okay, and the collision will now be forwarded to everyone. So when they are transmitting to everyone, the collision will go to and reach it to everybody. Okay, so how we can prevent this collision, that is also there. How does one should prevent the collision? Initially, one should be able to detect it and send it to everyone that there is a collision happened. So everyone, please stay away, because there are two people who are communicating. So let them first finish up their communication. There are certain algorithms which we will be using here to understand the detection, and then how one should talk in a shared medium, how one should proceed in a shared medium. Okay, so these kind of collisions are more quite seen in a wired medium as well as over in a wireless medium. But in wireless medium, it becomes very, very difficult to detect those collisions. So in wireless medium, we tend to see that we avoid those collisions. So the preference is given for avoiding it instead of detection, because in wired medium, at least you can detect and you can send the signals to others that there is some communication which is happening between two people. So first let them finish up their communication and then others will initiate. So everyone will take up some back of time, some random time to just wait for the communication to complete, whoever has initiated. Okay. Yes, PC3 and PC4, when they both got collided, this information is now sent to everyone. So now a random back of time, both of them are going to pick up. Okay, means PC3 and PC4, they are going to pick up some random time. If I play it forward, okay. At present, let it be like this. It's playing some other topology. So when they got collided, PC3 and PC4, they will select some random clock. They will select some random clock. That means this is, I'm going to send at this time. PC4 will say I'm going to send at this time. So they're going to select both at different times. So now when they select a random time, they will put up their signal. They will finish off their communication. Then the other PC3 will also start their information, sending of information, and then they both will finish up, and then only the other devices will get to know that, okay, now they have completed, now we can also start. So there is some sort of mechanism of waiting and back of time, which we will again discuss it when we will learn more about these networking devices. So I have picked up hub here, specifically hub, to show you this collision, because none with the switch or a router I can show you this collision, because hub is considered as a layer 1 device which was supporting this kind of feature of, there was collisions which were happening. So networking devices is going to be one such separate session in which we will learn, dig inside every device, their roles, their functionalities, everything in detail for all of these networking devices we are going to see in the next sessions. Okay, so don't worry, we are all going to explore the devices in detail. So this is all about the OSI model in today's class. If you have any questions, please go ahead. I hope all of you have understood the layered architecture well. Functionalities, I'm just skimming through the document so that whatever we have just discussed, you can just have a look into it. In the switch, we will not be able to see the collision because switch is not having that collision feature. Switch is full duplex. Normally, the collision happens in a half duplex communication. Okay, half duplex communication. So this we talked about an application layer, we talked about the presentation layer, we talked about the session layer, duplex communication and all. We talked about the transport layer, sequencing, acknowledgement, retransmission, flow control. We talked about the network layer, IP addressing, inter-network communication, best path determination, the data link layer responsible for physical addressing or MAC addressing, error detection, medium access control. MAC stands for medium access control. And then the last one was your physical layer, where everything is converted into bits and electrical specification, mechanical specification. All these things are seen over here. Okay, so it's all about the OSI model. In the TCP/IP model, in the tomorrow's session, we will discuss in TCP/IP, all these functionalities are taken care by the protocols. Okay, that's why it is a protocol suite. There are a set of protocols who are already doing this kind of jobs. It was just that they were not having, or they were lacking the layered architecture approach. So when OSI model came up, they understood that there is a layered mechanism which will help in understanding the roles better, functionalities better. So accordingly, then they decided that their protocol suite can be also defined in according to the layered architecture. Okay, so that we will navigate in the tomorrow's session. I hope you have got some clear information about all these 7 layers, what are their roles, their functionalities, and it's a reference model. OSI is a reference model which is for our understanding. Okay. Any queries so far, guys? Anything you want to ask? You can unmute yourself and you can ask. Okay.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I see here you got a packet tracer as
Yes.
a simulator.
Yes.
So which version is that for that packet tracer?
This is the latest version 7.0, 7.3, 8.1, I guess. Yeah, this is the latest one.
So I need some licensing for that?
I guess you will not need some license, but in order to set up in your, see, this is Cisco Packet Tracer 8.0. This is the latest version which I have it. You can, if you want, I will ask my backend team to connect with you and install it in your system.
Yeah, sure, I need that too.
All right. Okay. Okay. So I'll just, you can I'll convey it to Sagar. You can just drop a message to him. So he will ask somebody to connect to you and he will make it install in your system.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So I hope your today's lecture was you have got good information and hope you liked it.
Yeah, it was good. I like it.
All right. Thank you so much. So see you all tomorrow. Till then, take care. So tomorrow we will look into the TCP/IP protocol suite, and more we will see it in Packet
Yeah,
Tracer as well.
I have a small question.
Sure, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. So if I wanna like I'm the end user and I wanna like getting into Amazon web page, for example.
Mhm.
So from the network perspective, how my input from my computer will hit that Amazon web page.
Amazon web page. You're talking about the AWS?
No, like no any web page, not only Amazon,
Ah,
any web page.
okay. You want to go and visit any website.
Yes.
So if you want to visit any website, what are you going to do? You will get to your web browser and you're going to hit the link. You are going to type the URL, right? You're going to type the domain name, www.amazon.com or amazon.in. You will first enter the website name in the domain name into the URL. Once you
Yes.
hit the domain name into the URL, the domain name will be resolved by your DNS server. Okay, the DNS server will check out what is the corresponding IP for your particular domain name. That IP will then be given, and then after you get the particular IP for that particular name, for the domain name, then you will see that you were not there in yesterday's lecture. Were you there?
Was not there yesterday.
Okay. Because there I had demonstrated yesterday. I had demonstrated this thing that I had a web server, I had a DNS server, and in the web server we had this website. Means I had this HTTP service which was working. There are some template files, HTML template files, and I edited these hello world HTML files to just show you. Hello world, good morning. Let's say I want to add something more today. I can just say, uh, good day, and I just save it. Okay. So this particular web server, if you get into the services, just go to the file manager. This services is on. HTTP is a protocol which is working when you are accessing any website. HTTP or HTTPS. These are the protocols. I just gave an IP to this particular server, and that IP was given to as 10.0.0.2. This was some IP which was given to this web server. Now, if you want to go and access this web page, first thing is that you can go and access directly by using the IP address. Okay, so you can go and just go to your PC2 and you get to your desktop, go to your web browser, like the way you go to your Chrome browser or Firefox browser, and you can hit the IP address 10.0.0.2 and say go. So here you got the web page, and I go and see whether whatever I edited. So these are the other pages which was there in that server. So I had this hello world, good morning, good day, which I had saved there. And there are some other pages which was also there. There was a copyright page. So you can import different HTML pages, whatever you want to design for your website. So I went and I added the IP address. But as a human being, I just cannot remember all the IP addresses for different websites, okay, different web servers. So what makes me easy is to put the domain name. If it would have been some Cisco packettracer.com or some other .com or .in, it would have been much easier for me to just enter that and go ahead. So normally what we do is, instead of, because we human beings are not very good in remembering numbers or specifically this kind of IP addresses, so we try to see that we give it a name. So there is a domain name. That is why you see for all the websites, that cisco.com, microsoft.com, anything, they have a domain name. So once they have the domain name, so what you can do is you can take up one more server which will act like your domain name resolver, who is going to resolve the name to an IP. Because human being can understand names, but your computer networks cannot understand names. They need IP to understand it. So what you go is you go to the DNS, you will see that you will add the name. So I added the name cisco.com. And I said, if you want, I will just remove this first. So I'll just say that I'll give the name to that particular web page as www.ciscopackettracer.com, let's say. And I will just go and put the address of the web server, which was 10.0.0.2. And I'll just say add. As soon as I added this record, now next time anybody who tries to put www.ciscopackettracer.com, the information will first come to the DNS server. It will pick up the IP associated with this domain name, and then it will just go and talk to the web server. But prior to that, once you put up the domain name, you need to make sure that in your computer, you put up the DNS server IP address, which was 10.0.0.3. This was the IP which was given to the DNS server. If this address is missing in your system, then you will never be able to go and contact, because let's say I remove this particular
Okay, let's say I don't have a DNS server. I'm at home. I'm using
right.
my internet.
Right. So this is the thing which is happening even at your home. In your home, you have your DNS server which is already been configured. When you go to your CMD prompt, you will check out that you go and type ipconfig/all. So you will see that the DNS server is being configured in your system.
Yeah, the provider. Yeah.
Yes, it's automatically been configured. So because of this, you are able to resolve the name to an IP, and you're able to reach out to the different web servers, because let's say you are often visiting few websites, so that will be cached into the memory. Every time it will not go to the actual DNS server, and it is not possible to learn about all the website names and their corresponding IP by your servers. So there is a hierarchical way of understanding the DNS. There is a hierarchical approach to understand how the DNS works, how the name is being resolved. Okay, name is resolved to an IP, because every time we will not know the IP of a corresponding name. So how is that particular thing resolved? That is again a complete story on DNS. Okay, so when you're hitting a web page, that means first you need to see that there is a DNS server which is existing in your system, that is being configured in your system, and then it will be able to make resolve the name to an IP, and that name to an IP will be resolved, and then later on the handshake process will happen with the web server, and then your request goes and the reply comes. Okay, you can go and check out that in the recordings of previous if you require. However, because there's a simulation mode in the packet tracer which basically tells how the packets are navigated when you hit the URL www.cisco.com or ciscopackettracer.com. First, the packet will reach to the DNS server. It will fetch the IP and it will come back to the computer. It will then make a handshake with the web server, and it will decide how they are going to synchronize themselves, the windowing concepts, the transport layer concepts. And later on, the request of HTTP web page goes, and then the reply from the web server comes, and then you get the web page. This is how entirely things are working up. Okay, so at present, if I go and type www.ciscopackettracer.com, at present, the host name will be unresolved because I have removed my DNS IP address. Okay, so you need to know the DNS server is being configured in your system. Okay, so at present, it is not able to resolve this name to an IP. That is why it says host name is unresolved. Okay, so what I have to do, I just need to go and put up the DNS server address, which was 10.0.0.3. Now, all these things we are doing in a static configuration. In our computers, everything is in a dynamic way. That is a dynamic host configuration. So we don't set up any IP, we don't set up any server address. It is being done by your provider. Okay, so now when I go and resolve it, okay, means I go and do it. I'll just show you in the simulation mode also. I'll go to the web browser. I'll just type www.ciscopackettracer.com. ciscopackettracer.com and hit go. Now these packets are created. Okay, the DNS server as well as the ARP packet has been created. What is that ARP? We will learn that in the tomorrow's class or maybe in the next week's class. The ARP request reply has come. The DNS server's process has been started. So see, you said cisco-packet-tracer.com, so directly it didn't went to the web server. It first started with the DNS server. So the DNS request has gone to know the IP of that cisco-packet-tracer.com. The reply has been given by the server. Then goes your TCP handshake. Now you're doing the handshake with the server. So your first handshake is happening. Okay, your first handshake is happening. The second handshake has been replied by your server. And then comes this blue page, blue packet, which is your HTTP request. So first the third handshake will go. Okay, the green color packet is the third handshake. And then your HTTP request is also going up to the server. So the request has gone. At present, you can see the web page has not yet come because the HTTP request has just gone. So the HTTP request has gone, requesting for the web page, and then the server is going to respond with the web page, and here you should get your web page. Okay, so this is how it works even in your end. Okay, in your end also it is having a similar approach, that your first DNS server is resolving the name to an IP, then there is a handshake process happening, and then the request and the reply of HTTP works that way. Okay, I hope I could answer your question.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, yeah. Okay. Any other questions, guys? So should we end the lecture today?
Tomorrow, what we're gonna do tomorrow? What's the plan for tomorrow?
Tomorrow's agenda would be to see the TCP/IP protocol suite, because as I mentioned that there are certain set of protocols which are working to achieve these functionalities of the different layers. Okay, so these different layers which we saw today in OSI model, there was just information about their roles and functionalities. So there were no such a set of protocols which OSI defined. OSI was just defining the functionalities, what each layer should do. They were not ready with the protocols, that who are going to do it. That was not ready with the OSI. That was ready with the TCP/IP protocol suite, because it was a protocol suite. So there were a lot of protocols which were already doing this functionality, but they were not defined in a proper layered manner. But later on, it was then made it in a proper layered architecture. So we will explore about TCP/IP protocol suite tomorrow, as well as I will be showing you this ARP process, because this ARP protocol which you saw at the very start, there was one green color packet which was there before DNS server. So what is this ARP process? That and TCP/IP protocol suite, that will be the two concepts which we will cover it in tomorrow's session.
Okay.
Okay, fine then. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day ahead. See you
Thank you.
tomorrow.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.